Hello and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Gennari, and this is Great Big History Podcast. In this episode, we do the Persians. So, the Persians were the Medes' little cousins. Nomadic horse peoples who entered the Middle East and then kind of started to settle down, not to be like full farmers and all that. They're more like conquerors. But they're not going back to the Ukraine. They're not going back to Central Asia. They're going to stay in the Middle East. They're nowhere near as wealthy as the Babylonians, much less the Egyptians. They end up in the southwestern part of Persia, of Iran, in a place called Persis, a place that will become Persia. But it's not part of Mesopotamian world. It's the edge of the Mesopotamian world, even when the Persians show up. And so, How did these guys win? And the answer is Cyrus. Cyrus the Great. Repeat after me, ladies and gentlemen. Cyrus is the man. Cyrus is the man. Everybody liked Cyrus. In fact, even today, there's a body wash named after him. It smells like citrus. So it makes sense. It's the citrus groves of Mesopotamia. So you can wash yourself and smell like Cyrus the Conqueror. So why is Cyrus so great? Why does everyone like Cyrus? Well, he is a conqueror. He actually has an origin story, kind of like Superman. His grandfather was king of the Medes. And the grandfather had a dream where he dreamed that, how does one put this? Well, he dreamed that his daughter gave birth to a giant squid octopus. So he goes, well, what the hell is that? And what the philosophers tell him is, that means she's going to give birth to someone who's going to envelop the world, who's going to conquer the world. And so basically, the grandfather's like, I have to kill my grandson, who hasn't even been born yet. I have to make sure he never becomes king, or he'll take over the world. He'll kill me. And so what the grandfather does is marry his daughter off to a low-level Persian noble guy, basically shipping her off. He'll never become king of the Medes now. That's great. So they're off in Persia, in the southwestern part of the world. They're nobodies. I mean, he's not a commoner. He's still a nobleman. But, this is not a guy who's hanging out at court. And she gets pregnant. She gives birth to a boy. And the king doesn't really care. He's like, yeah, that's great, honey. It's great. Whatever. You had a 50-50 chance. You had a boy. All right, whatever. Let's see if he lives. Because, only 50% of children live to be the age of 5. So, And what happens, though, is this child going to take over the world. And so what the king then realizes is, he's like, the kid's not dead. The kid hasn't died of natural causes. So he sends a nobleman, he sends a hit squad to steal the child and murder the child. Kind of like the evil queen does to Snow White, and exactly like what happens in the Oedipus story. And so the guy goes, steals the kid, goes out to the forest or to a mountain, going to murder the kid, looks at the baby and says, I can't murder a baby. That's crazy. This is crazy talk. It's a baby. And so what the guy does is go to a local farmer. He finds a house. He goes to a local farm and he goes, you murder the baby and I'll pick him up tomorrow. And the farmer's like, but I don't want to murder the baby. The gods are going to be mad at me. And he's like, I don't care. I'm picking the dead baby up tomorrow. You do what you need to do or I'll kill you. So the farmer's like, okay. So nobleman goes back to the hotel, hangs out, has a whole lot of drinks, gets schnockered, because he's going to come back the next day and pick up the dead prince, right? Because remember, it's not just you're killing the baby, you're killing the heir to the Medes, right? You're killing the son of the daughter of the king. even though the king has ordered this, this is all kinds of forked up. So there is a reason to get drunk, this is the reason. Now, the farmer goes home. And he opens up the door and goes, honey, you won't believe what freaking happened. And she turns to him and says, I had a miscarriage. We had a stillborn baby while you were gone. I'm sorry. And he's like, oh, that sucks. I'm so sorry, honey. What can I do? And she's like, what do you have in your arms? And he's like, well, I have a baby. Where did you get a baby? Well, I ran into a nobleman who told me to kill this baby and then he was going to pick up the baby tomorrow. And if I don't kill the baby, he's going to kill me. It's some kind of really effed up noble thing. And the wife goes, no, honey, you don't understand. It's like, that I'm going to get murdered over a baby? He's like, no, our baby didn't survive. The gods have given us a baby. The gods have replaced our dead baby with that baby. And the husband's like, oh, woman, I love you. You are the smartest woman in the whole wide world, and I'm so sorry you had a miscarriage. I'm so sorry you had to go through that alone. I'm sorry, but I was stuck with this guy, and he's kind of crazy. And she's like, don't worry about it. That's the gods giving us to us. So, all right, we'll get cleaned up. We'll clean up our son, and we'll hand him our son, and then we'll raise that baby as our son. And we'll tell nobody. And the husband says, okay, we'll keep that secret. I can do that. He'll be my son. He'll be your son. It'll be great. And that's what happens. The noble guy comes in and he's like, did you kill the baby? He's like, yes, here he is. He's like, oh, that looks terrible. Don't just wrap that up. All right. Good for you. I hope I never see you again. And leaves. He brings the dead baby to the king of the Medes. The king of the Medes is like, my dead baby grandson. Wonderful. Perfect. I will never be overthrown. Okay? And so those farmers raise their super baby, because that's what Cyrus is. Cyrus has the blood of kings running through him. He is not an ordinary farmer's baby. He is a super baby. And so like when he plays sports on the local farmer kids team in like the 3rd grade, he is the quarterback, the running back, and the wide receiver all at the same time. He is awesome. He runs faster than everybody, including the adults. He is just everything he does. He can paint, write poetry, and do long division all at the same time. He's one of those guys who plays chess against 12 people at once. Why? Because he's got king's blood running through him. So he's awesome. And so every year, the king of the Medes hears about kids who are like awesome. And he brings a few of them in to be like, hey, I want to hang out with these kids who are like, getting to be teenagers, so that he could build loyalty, right? He makes them generals. He makes them politicians. He makes them governors, right? It's a good way. You bring in the best and the brightest. You give them jobs. They're loyal to you. This is how government should work. This is good. You get people of talent, right? And so he hears about this boy in the southeast. He's like, oh, bring him in. And he shows up. And he's like, you look familiar. Huh. Well, let's see what you can do. And he does everything better than even the best and the brightest. He's a leader. He's charismatic. He can sing. He can dance. He can paint and do photography. He does everything. And what the king of the Medes realizes, you're my grandson. Only a king, only the descendant of a king can be this awesome all at the same time. And he looks at the nobleman and says, you brought me a dead baby. He's like, I did bring you a dead baby. Did you kill that baby yourself? Well, no. Okay. You're forgiven. You actually did a good thing, because now I have my grandson. And he hugs his grandson. He hugs Cyrus. He's like, I have my grandson. And my grandson is awesome. And I'm awesome. And everybody's awesome. And You who didn't kill my grandson, you gave me my grandson back. I'm so happy. And the noble guy is like, oh, I'm so happy. Cause that's great, because this could have ended really badly. But okay. Right? And that's great. And then Cyrus turns into a teenager. And then he turns 18. And then he starts being jacked, and he looks sexy. And he's obviously replacing. Everybody's looking at him being like, Cyrus, you're awesome. And meanwhile, now, remember, the king is now 20 years older than this. So he's gotten old. He's gotten decrepit. He's got the long fingernails and the beard that's not maintained anymore. And he's like, you're not going to get me. You're not going to get me. And Cyrus is like, okay, boomer. You got to die sometime. He's like, I'm never going to die. I was born before you. I'm going to be alive after you. And so what he does is try to kill Cyrus. Tries to assassinate Cyrus. Cyrus escapes. He runs away, gets on a horse, runs down to Persia, where he shows up and goes, I am Cyrus, son of the king, grandson of the king, son of this lord, son of the queen, of the duchess, who is the daughter of the king. I am the heir apparent. Follow me. And people are like, oh, I'm totally following you. You're a sexy god. So he raises an army in Persia, right? Remember the king. He goes to the noble guy and goes, I have to go fight my grandson now. I have to go down to the south. I have to get my army together. And the noble guy's like, okay, that's great. Can I help? He's like, you're going to come to dinner. We're going to talk about strategy. And the noble guy's like, great. And you know what? You have a son, right? And the guy's like, yeah, he's like 25. He's a perfect age to be an officer in your army. He's like, oh, great. I'm going to make him a general. And the noble's like, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. I thought you'd be mad. He's like, I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm not mad at all. Come to dinner. What's your son's name? Guards, go get the son. Make sure he knows he's general. Get him to where he has to go. Go get him. Deliver my message. He writes out his message. Shh. Here, deliver it. So later that night, the king is there. The noble guy comes in. He sits down. They start eating their dinner, and they're talking strategy. How are we going to defeat Cyrus? How are we going to put down this rebellion? And they bring out the roast meat, and they start carving it up, and it's delicious. And the king's like, do you like that? He's like, yes, it's delicious. Thank you so much. It's like, oh, I made it special for you. Have some more. It's like, oh, all right, I will have some more. He's like, let's talk more strategy. Great. And it goes on for hours, right? They're eating the roast meats. They're talking strategy, right? And the king turns to him and goes, you want some more meat? He goes, no, I can't. I'm so full. I ate so much. And the king looks at him and says, I'm glad you said that, because you just ate your son. Dun, dun, dun. And the noble guy looks at the food and he goes, oh my God. He's like, yeah. Remember when I said he was going to be general? Yeah. Well, I sent my guards to get him. And instead of taking him to the army so he could be general of a regiment, we took him to the slaughterhouse where he was gagged and then murdered. And then the chefs turned him into roast meat, and you ate him. You ate him because you didn't do what I said. And now all of this is coming true. All this prophecy is coming true because of you. And the noble guy's like, no. And then the king does the strangest thing in the end. He's like, you are going to kill Cyrus. You are going to be general of my armies. And you are going to make it up to me. You are going to go down there and you are going to kill Cyrus, and then I will forgive you. And the guy says, okay, that's great. I will do that. I will be loyal. I will never not listen to you again. And so he gets his stuff. He goes to the army. He says, I'm general. He's got all the documents. He's got all the medals. And he goes down. He marches down south to Cyrus. And he meets him on the battlefield. And Cyrus is like, dude, if we have to fight, I'll kill you. And the noble guy says, I spared you once. How about I spare you again? and we killed a mad king. And Cyrus is like, my brother. And the guy's like, I don't know about that, but I'm at least your ally. And now you have now. So what Cyrus ends up is the small Persian army plus the larger Median army. And now they're going to march all the way up to Media, and they're going to attack the king. The king gets, a bit of a small royal force to fight them off. There's a giant battle, and Cyrus kills his grandfather just like it was prophesied on the battlefield. And Cyrus is the king of the world. He has killed the Median king. He has killed his grandfather, who tried to kill him first, so he was allowed. He has allied himself with the Persian nobility, who is, of course, horrified that this king fed his own son to one of their own noblemen. So they're all like, well, that is effed up, man. We don't want that kind of king. And so, Cyrus is like, I am now king of the world. And everyone goes, oh my God, he's going to be an Assyrian. He's going to murder everybody. And he says, we're all going to get married. And people are like, what you talking about, Cyrus? Yes, I need a wife. I am Persian, but I do not have a wife. I will marry a Median princess. And my generals will marry Median princesses. And the Persians and the Medes will be cousins, and we will be brothers, and we will be brothers-in-law, and we will all be one people. And the Medians are like, yeah, but you're our little cousins. And Cyrus says, but I'm awesome. Don't you want me to be in charge, or you want the Mad King, who's now dead? And they're like, oh, Cyrus is in charge. The Persians are in charge. But the Persians aren't in charge because now we're all married to each other. And this showed that Cyrus was nice. How was Cyrus going to rule? He learned from the Assyrians that being mean didn't help them. He's going to be nice. He's going to ally. He's going to marry into the Medians so they become one people. Do you know how we have a saying in English, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other? That they're the same thing. They don't make any difference. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. The Greeks had a saying, one man's Mede is another man's Persian, meaning they were the same. I know they're different, but they're not different. They're the same. They're so close to the same. Their differences don't really matter. So Cyrus is nice. He's a nice conqueror. And it works. Everybody likes Cyrus. The Persians are able to incorporate people's labor. People want to work for the Persians. People are happy to work for the Persians. And they build Persepolis. Now, this is the guy, the third king, Darius, who will build Persepolis. But the idea is you still need a Babylon, right? You need a city that looks like Babylon. But instead of enslaving people, he hires people. He hires the best and the brightest. There's Greeks from 2,000 miles away. There's Indians from the Indus River Valley from 2,000 miles away. There's Egyptians. The Egyptians are a little complicated. But there's the Lebanese. There's the Phoenicians with their wood. And he brings everybody together, the best and the brightest, to help build this city. And they mix. And those people, and you get legitimacy out of that. Why? Because you have these people mixing, and they're like, who are you? And they're like, oh, well, I'm an Indian. Well, where the hell is India? I don't have that on my map. Oh, well, it's 2,000 miles to the east. And who are you? Well, I'm a Greek. Well, what the hell is that? Well, it's 2,000 miles to the west. Wait a minute. You mean the Persians own everything between you and me? Boy, they must be awesome people. And then they take a look at Persepolis and go, whoa, you see how awesome our stuff is built? The Persians are awesome people. And then they get paid and they go, whoa, the Persians are awesome. So it's a great city. It's good wages. It's all these people, diversity mixing together. The Hebrews, who had been enslaved by Nebuchadnezzar, by the Babylonians during that 75 years of war, consider Cyrus to be a Messiah. He is the only non-Jewish Messiah in the Old Testament. Now, what is a Messiah? A Messiah is typically a Jewish person sent by the Jewish God to save the Jewish people. And yes, there's an asterisk to that because lots of things can be sent by God that are things. So lots of things get called messiahs that are objects. But in terms of people, it's a Jewish person sent by the Jewish God to save Jewish people, with an exception, with a footnote. And that footnote is Cyrus. Do you know how awesome you have to be a Messiah footnote? He's the only one. And that's Isaiah 45, 1-3, talking about how the Lord takes him, Cyrus, by the right hand, the strong hand, and leads him, and is going to smash cities and open gates and give him money. Because my name is the Lord. Yahweh mic drops, calling Cyrus a Messiah. The because my name is the Lord part is Yahweh mic dropping. Whenever you see that in the Old Testament, it is, you don't get to argue. I'm done. Boom. Done. Walking away. Do you know how awesome the Hebrews have to think you are to call you a Messiah? And why do they call him a Messiah? Because when he rolls into Babylon, which 75 years earlier had conquered Judah, picked up the people, and moved them as slaves to Babylon to use them as slave labor, he shows up and he sends them home. He says, go back. Judeans. He calls them Judeans, which means Judah is their home. This is where Jews come from. Jews get to live in Judea. That's the idea. Which says all those people who live in Judea that the Babylonians move in, they're fake. They will kick them out. And the Hebrews are like, we don't have any money to move. And Cyrus says, I'll give you money. I'll give you carts. I'll give you horses. I'll give you money. I will help you. Did you have anything else? Did you have a city? Because everyone should have a great city in Mesopotamia. And they say, yes, it's not like Persepolis and it's not like Babylon, but it's Jerusalem. It was cool at the time. And he says, great, I'll help you rebuild it. Did you have anything else? And they go, we had a big temple to our one super god. And Cyrus laughs and goes, that's nice. No wonder you keep losing. You only have one god. I've got 12. I've got a Ahura Mazda, which is an awesome god, by the way. And they're like, well, no, we understand Ahura Mazda. He's kind of like our god. I know you're not monotheistic. You're kind of like, yeah, there's a lot of relationship between Zoroaster and us. There just is, right? You have snakes being evil. We're cool. Zoroaster was born to a virgin. We're gonna hold on to that. We'll use that later. We're cool. And so Cyrus helps the Hebrews rebuild the second temple. The second temple of Yahweh could easily have a sign on it, brought to you by a generous donation from Cyrus. So it's funny to see modern Israeli politicians talk about how Israel and Persia, or even modern Iranian politicians say, Israel and Persia have always been enemies. No, they haven't. They haven't been enemies at all in history up until 1979. At all. In fact, in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, when the Shah was in charge and an American ally, Israel and Iran were actually allies. They were actually helping each other get nuclear weapons. Like, you don't do that to people you have an ancient grudge against. The Montagues are not helping the Capulets get a nuclear weapon. That changes in 1979 with the Iranian Shia revolution. And since then, there's animosity. But the Iranians and Hebrews go all the way back to Cyrus's friends. What about the Persian army? So what holds this empire together? The Persian army. And the first thing is about it, it's an imperial army. It's the exact opposite of the Assyrians. The Persians learned from the Assyrians what not to do. And so what did the Persians do? They build an army, an imperial army. Anybody can join it. Anyone. Persians are going to be in charge of it, but they're cavalry. They're the horse people. They're the best horse people, but they're horse people. So they're going to have Babylonian infantry and chariots. They're going to have Egyptian archers. They'll have Phoenician marines and navy. They're going to take everybody, anyone who wants to join. And so the Persian army is huge. It is the largest army of the ancient world. It is, we think, about 250,000 people. It's so big that Herodotus says it's 4 million. When it crosses into Egypt. Why does he use 4 million? Because 4 million was the largest number they had in Greek. It was a number so large, it was like God saying to Abraham, I'll give you as many descendants as there are stars. It's a made-up number. It's like me saying a gazillion. It's not real. It's just massive. And so It's probably about, modern historians think it's about 250,000, which would make it the largest army in human history up until the French Revolution. Napoleon, 2,000 years later. The Assyrians don't have a super large army. The Assyrians have a typical army, about 30,000 people. It's hugely efficient, but it's not overwhelmingly big because only Assyrians could be in it. The Persians realize you put everybody in it. Anybody who wants to join, will pay them. What is an advantage of this? Diversity. Everyone fights in their home style, which means they all know how to fight well. Because they all know how to fight in their home style. Babylonians on chariots are going to fight well. If they have to fight on foot or on horse, they fight worse. But on chariots, woohoo! The Egyptian archers or Phoenician marines, you're getting their best people doing their best job. So diversity. Everyone fights in their home style. So the Persian army isn't one army. It's 15 different little armies inside of one army. So they throw the Persian cavalry at you. You put your spears out, you get in your phalanx like the Spartans at Thermopylae, and you could fight that off. And then they throw in their infantry, and you could fight that off, right? And then they bring in their archers, and then they bring in their elephants from India, and then they bring in their rhinos from Africa, and then they bring in, sooner or later, they're going to find a weapon system that you cannot defeat. You will be overwhelmed. You cannot fight every different type of military in the Persian army. And so what is its advantages? First is size. 250,000 people show up, they're going to eat you out of house and home. They don't actually have to fight a battle against you. And if they do, they will completely overwhelm you. A typical army in the ancient world was 5,000 to 10,000 people. A big army was 30,000. Remember Ramses? Ramses has 30,000 or so troops. That's the typical amount you could feed. If you're really good, you might get that up to around 50,000 troops for a limited time. It's just too hard to feed that many people. The Persians could feed 250. Their logistics was insane. They could put 250,000 people, which means if you fought them, they would overwhelm you. Their sheer size was an advantage. But it also meant if you were a king, they would eat you out of house and home. They would eat all your pigs, all your oxen. They would eat everything. So you made peace to get them to leave. So their size is an advantage. We've already talked about defense. You can't defend against them. If you defend against horses, their infantry will defeat you. If you defend against infantry, their elephants will run over you. If you defend against the elephants, their archers will tear you apart. And what about terrain? Well, they have everybody from everywhere. They got Phoenicians who know how to fight on sea. They got mountain peoples who know how to fight in mountains and have guerrilla tactics. They got elephants who know how to fight on a giant plain. They've got cavalry who could fight on flat land. They got chariots who can fight a fast-moving battle. There is no terrain they can't fight on. So they can fight everywhere. You can't defend against them, and they will overwhelm you. What is the disadvantage of this super army? And this makes sense because the Persians conquer everybody. They conquer from India, and they conquer to the Greeks, and they conquer from the Caucasus Mountains to the second cataract of Egypt. What is that disadvantage? The disadvantage is diversity. It's not one army. It's 15 different armies, all doing different things. They don't work together. They don't have combined arms like the Assyrians. It's not an efficient army, which means, and this is what Alexander will realize, what Alexander will eventually realize is you can't fight the entire Persian army. Just fight the Persians. The Persians are the best part of it. If you fight the Persians and you defeat the Persians, everyone else will run away because they'll all say, oh my God, they defeated the Persians and the Persians are the best. They're definitely better than me. And they will run away and you let them go. That without the Persians leading from the front, without the Persian example, the rest of the armies, all these 14 other armies, there's nothing holding them together. Whereas you couldn't do that with the Assyrian army. The Assyrian army, you had to murder all down to the last person. So diversity is both the Persian army's strength and the Persian army's weakness. So what happens? What happens to the Persian Empire? Well, it collapses in death and fire, in blood and fire, because of the Greeks. They are going to get involved. Darius and then his son Xerxes, the third and fourth kings of the Persian Empire, are going to get involved in the stupid Greek wars. They're going to get involved and they're going to lose. They're going to lose at Marathon, then they're going to lose at Salamis, which we're going to talk about in part 2 of our class. This makes the Persians look weak. They can defeat Egypt. They could defeat Babylon. They can't defeat little old Greeks. Are you kidding me? And so all those people who looked at the Persian and went, oh, you're so great. Now they're looking at him going, maybe you're not so tough. And so people start to revolt. They start to break away or try to break away, which now means you have to murder those people. You have to roll in. And Egypt is the one who always, remember, Egypt is the richest place on earth. So they're always trying to be independent. And so you have to roll in with your army and murder everybody. You have to kill people. You have to put your foot down on their necks. And the idea of that is that's not how Cyrus wanted to run his empire. You're supposed to be nice. And so military defeat brought around a behavior that looks more like the Assyrians, that they're not nice. Well, when they're not nice, people don't like them very much. And then Alexander and his Macedonians and the Greeks show up. And what they do is crush the Persian army. They crush a provincial army, then they crush the Persian army twice, the royal army twice. And in doing that, the people break apart. The governors go their own way. When Alexander shows up and says, do you want to fight me or work for me? People say, Alexander, I'm working for you. Even the Judeans who love the Persians, who will fight to the Persians. When Alexander shows up and goes, me or them, it's like, well, you're here, so you. The Egyptians who hate the Persians accept Alexander as a pharaoh. He's not Egyptian. He doesn't even have a tan. And he shows up and they accept him as a pharaoh, as a god liberator. They do. And so what happens with the collapse in blood and fire of this diverse empire? The cracks just break it apart. Without the Persians in charge, it just breaks up into those constituent parts. Mesopotamian culture gets replaced by Greek culture for the next 1,000 years until the Arabs will conquer the Middle East and turn Greek culture into Arabic culture. The next 1,000 years, the Middle East is essentially part of Europe, all the way to Afghanistan. Afghanistan is part of Europe at this point. It's a distant part, but the Greco-Bactrian Empire is a part of the Greek world, which makes it part of the European world. So the Middle East, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Afghanistan become part of a European world culture. That's what happened when the Persian Empire broke apart. The Persians are the last of the great Mesopotamian empires. And the irony of that is they're not Mesopotamian. They're nomadic horse people. They're Persians. That's the end of the Persian Empire. In our next episode, we'll have Egypt. We're going to do Egypt. So good luck. See you soon. Take care.